All right, so genetic time windows. So, in the beginning here, we're going to talk about the scientific basis for genetic time windows, and then at the end, it's a little bit of my coaching perspective, which is up for debate. Obviously, I'm not 35 yet, so I can't judge based on on that, but we'll get into that in a second, okay? So these have a lot of scientific evidence that is in support of these age windows, which you can check down below. I always encourage you to at least glance through the studies and form your own opinion as well, and of course shared feedback. But when it comes to time windows, from 6 to 9, you have everybody knows that a kid can learn a language very easily just from listening to people speaking the language and then trying to formulate words for themselves. They have a natural knack for neurotransmitter neural pathways being formed, right? Maybe it's that axon thickness, that myelin sheath. Early on, there just seems to be a natural ability for kids to develop these biomotor abilities, right? And when I say biomotor abilities, I mean like jumping, hinging, and all biomotor abilities are built on the backs of other biomotor abilities. So strength, speed, endurance, coordination, and flexibility in the different movement patterns, which are again jumping, throwing, gait, so running, things of that nature are all built on the backs of other things. So yes, it introduces complexities, but that's necessary for development, right? We're not gonna see the novice has to try a bunch of things to learn, and then the expert simplifies to eliminate risk, right? In the end. So I think there's a saying that goes like that. But anyways, the youth athlete will start off with just like one block, which is jumping, and then they will learn how to jump on with ice skates or whatever, and that ice skates will translate to pivoting in basketball, and the endurance they develop from to be able to change direction lots of times in a game may transfer over well to basketball, and they may develop the penultimate step when they change direction in football and the ability to collide with other people, and that may transfer well to Olympic lifting. Whatever the kid wants to do, you should be putting them in so many different sports early on, because their bodies are like Play-Doh at this point, right? So it's like hard for them to actually get injured. Like it's really hard. Like they can hurt themselves for sure, but the level of impact is so small that it's really not a risk to let them play around. Like if I collide with another 180-pound male, we're fracturing something along the lines because of the amount of force that's going to be produced. But these kids, think about it. They're like, little balls of about 100 and not even 100 pounds. They're like 40 pounds running into each other, right? And their bones aren't even as hard as ours yet. So if you think about it, like this is one of the things that you should take advantage of early on, because it's hard for them to get injured, and they're more adept at this point to learn these skills. Okay, from 10 to 12, if you're of this age, or if your child is in this age bracket, things like agility and bodily control are going to play a huge factor. So I think from like 10 to 15, you should start specifying a little bit more. Definitely from 12 to 15, you should be lifting weights and muscle building because you have these crazy hormonal spikes. It's when puberty really hits. And you get hormone consistency around 15 to 16. That is, if you're not partying a ton, right? Because I think about the age where we go to college and stuff like that. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, so 12 to 15, you start seeing puberty level hormonal spikes. 10 to 12, you want to start specializing with like 1 to 2 sports. So let's get into that a little bit more. This is where my opinion starts to come in a little bit more based on my experience as a youth athlete and what I've seen growing up coaching youth athletes, playing on many different teams, seeing how even today till this day how people are coached, the dynamics of the youth athlete. So from 6 to 9 years old, okay, and I know for a fact Michael Jordan used to compete with his brother and he used to try to impress his father. I was the same way. So and if you watch this video, it's on YouTube and it's linked below on what a youth athlete is looking to do. It depends on the parent, right? Because your arete, which is what we talked about in another lesson of mental models, so like your highest form of good as a child is your parents' eyes on you. Because they're always punishing you, they're always telling you if you did good or bad. You don't know the world through any other light besides your parents. Let me repeat this. When you're growing up, you don't know the world from any other light besides your parents, right? Because we're taught from an early age, which is totally normal, by the way, but it has its cons, just like everything, that if we go out into the world, if we cross the street by ourselves, we're gonna get captured by el francés. We're in big trouble. There's scary people across the road, right? Which isn't really good to do. It has its pros and its cons, like I said. But we start seeing the world through, okay, what do my parents think is okay, right? And they are our guiding light. So in this video, they highlight this as well, so you can take a look if you want. But the kid only sees what's good or bad through your eyes. So if you start asking the kid, and this is what they talk about in the YouTube video, or if you're young enough to be watching this at 6 to 9 years old and you're watching this, just understand that you see the world in this way. Whatever your highest good is, you're seeing whatever you're after is shaped by some sort of value, okay? And it's important, especially early on, because these pathways, these neural pathways get established and they become habitual, to have self-confidence early on and not just make the competition about winning. Of course we want to win, okay? But part of winning is more so about the process of skill development. And naturally, kids have this tendency to, if you like, you'll always see kids get angry. Like, they're angry for good reason because they're not good enough at a skill, and directing that anger in a healthy way can be phenomenal for youth athletes. Look at what it did to Tom Brady, to Michael Jordan, to Usain Bolt. These guys that's the stuff that absolute greatness is made of. So pivoting from thinking that the kid shouldn't be angry, or that the kid is anger's misplaced, is wrong, right? So the kids naturally want to direct this. It's your job to show them how to learn a skill and then how to get into a flow state. Ultimately, the goal is flow a lot of the time. Like, we want to win, but in the moment, the most of our time is spent in flow. Like at practice, in games, right? It's all one big learning experience. So rule-based, rigid in the beginning, then pattern recognition, reasoning, starting to figure out things for ourselves, right? What should I do if they do this? What should I do? You know what I mean? So developing through those 4 cognitive modes a lot of the time. And then deception, flexibility at the top, external pressure, right? And then turning up the knob even more, right? So, and by the way, if your youth athlete ever gets so good to where they stop enjoying the sport, they're just too good at it, they're in the wrong place, right? Because I've seen people that are so good that they just lose interest in the sport because what they wanted to do was get better and challenge themselves. And I think one of the reasons humans differentiate themselves from animals is our ability to reason. If you can logically wrap a kid's head around the fact that this is the goal, I mean, they're going to be sad, right? Because they're going to have the self confidence to know that failure is just a part of the equation and they're just going to keep going. And they're just going to keep going. So, confidence, you don't have to just fill them with fake confidence. You implement and logically explain to them how to develop skill and what they're after. And in my opinion, that's like the best thing you can achieve in life. It's just the ability to have the freedom to get better and better at something and people to pay you. And this is, I think a lot of people, like, they look for their passion in things. Screw your passion. Become skillful at something. You'll become passionate about it because you're so good at it. I think one of the first people that I heard say this, and it made a lot of sense, was Professor Galloway. Recommend you check him out as well. He's got a podcast. Cool guy. Okay, 10 to 15. There is a need to specialize in whatever sport you're playing at this point. Your bodily control is going to be from like 10 to 12, but then you should also start lifting weights. Can kind of be mixed in together. So 1 to 2 sports from 10 to 15. And then practicing load management really well. Your body can still handle a lot, but you're starting to get bigger. And if you're doing an impact sport, probably not going to work. If you're doing something like wrestling and rowing, you could probably get away. That's a lot of endurance work. If you're doing something like rowing and basketball, right? That would be good because it's upper body, lower body. I think your body can handle something like that. But either way, you should begin specializing at this age. Pretty much, like if you're wanting to play professionally. Introduce the concept of sports management that are in this course. It's going to be the greatest gift to them to understand load management. I don't really like, and I feel like there's going to be some pushback on like team sport athletes. And I thought about like, well, shouldn't I structure this more around like team sport athletes? And it's like, I, as a strength and conditioning coach, understand that like we're on the back foot, on the back burner in terms of like what people should be doing. But when I look at the literature, we should be at the front. Like strength and conditioning coaches should be the coaches designing the way an athlete's season plays out to avoid injuries. We shouldn't be allowing the fans to determine, the people who are being entertained to determine how schedules look, because the level of injuries that we're seeing is not really reducing. I mean, the medicine is better and better, but I feel like we're seeing more and more injuries, and it's because of how much we're playing, how much we demand of youth athletes. So I think everybody should work around good load management. And if your coach doesn't like the fact that you can't train as hard in one day, or you have to like ease back on some of the things that you do on one day, too bad. Tell them you understand load management, right? And I know that's not the attitude you can take towards it, but there has to be a change somewhere along down the line. And the alternative is injury. Like, it's just the number one cause of injury. Improper load management equals injury. Okay, the last thing is the social dynamics. So there's going to be a lot of external motivation to perform at this age, which can be highly, highly motivating. Okay? It's one of the reasons we do a lot of the sports that we do, and you should never run away from it. People say you should be humble, blah, 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 and which, like, you should chase a type of recognition that isn't gloating, of course, but external motivation is totally fine, and it's a big motivator for people. Now, in terms of emotional regulation and discipline, there's no life experience here, so you just can't expect the youth athletes to not fall victim to some of this stuff, and you can't beat up on them if you're a parent. You just can't. You know, you can't shame them because again, they still have this like especially 10 to 15, they're still not out of your house. They still have this tendency to look to you to see what's good or bad. Okay, and they don't have the life experience to know whether a girl is bad for them or it's not something they're taught in school. They don't have a girl doesn't have the experience to know what kind of a guy is bad for them. And again, that's a complicated dynamic, but there is that factor of external motivation. 15 to 28, I know what this is like. These are where your recoverability is still like off the charts. Like, I think once I hit like 27, I realized like my body kind of morphed into kind of what it was, and even now, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of see where that's at. When I was younger, I still didn't understand load management, so I was always injured. But you don't feel much, right? You can play and not really get sore. You can kind of move along as your day. Your tendons are very, your tendons never get sore. But you'll look back on these years, right? I don't. There's not much to say except for the fact that like the most fast-paced league in the world, which is the English Premier League in soccer, which is the most physically demanding sport in the world. Okay, no, you can't tell me otherwise. Like 45 minutes running back and forth. I mean, there is little breaks, but you saw in the change of direction lesson and the agility lesson how much force you put into the ground every time you change direction. I mean, it's crazy. To be in soccer shape, I think it's tougher than anything else. Some people say boxing. Everybody's obviously going to argue their own thing. But the EPL, the English Premier League, is definitely the most fast-paced league in the world. And just quick stat for you, 25.5 years old is the average age. So, not saying that you can't be in your prime, right? You can take care of your body, and your body can last you a good amount of time, especially if you take care of it. I mean, what did we just see Ronaldo win a tournament at what, like 40? And then the advantage you have here is you're so much more mature than your opponents. You have so much more discipline, tactics, experience, confidence. You're a leader at this point. And it feels great to be a leader, especially if you know what you're doing. So, takeaways, respect your age. We're all bound to life cycles. This is a heavily opinionated lesson, so drop your opinions in the community tab. Let us know what you think and provide sources. And I'll see you in the next lesson.